Dumps. Big, massive dumps.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. Trust me, I'm like a smart person. I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I had the best words. Tolerate. I know words. Mike Pounds. I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation. But there's no better word than stupid. Anonymous, really anonymous. I'm very highly educated. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water. Had the best words. God bless the United States.
Around the nation, Waldorf Nation. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. It's Monday. It's a new week. New and fun times. So, I'm sorry, I just heard like something like out of the, I was going to say the corner of my ears, but that doesn't make any sense. None does it. But I heard something out, I think it was outside the window, and it was kind of weird. Like, there's like people outside. I'm like, what are people doing outside? It's cold. Anyway, so, you know, anyway, it's a weird way to start the show because I'm like weirdly distracted by things, but that's fun. All right, anyway, so we got a good show today. We're going to talk about some stuff. We got things. We have Trump's taxes. That's one reason we brought back the old intro. We got a little bit of movement on that. Where it's gonna go, what's gonna happen as a result. Well, I'm gonna speculate. There's gonna be a little bit of speculation here. We're gonna be speculative. Then we've got Dominion versus the My Pillow guy. Texans are having some problems with some electric bills. We've also got a brand new. Oh, well, I shouldn't say a brand new conspiracy theory, but there's a conspiracy theory that has come back. Fake snow. Which is a thing. Fake snow actually exists. But hey, you know what? They're bringing it back. They're bringing back a classic. And I'm going to tell you what that's about. And then, important stuff. We have more updates in the investigation into the Capitol insurrection. So who was involved and what role did the police play, as well as looking into maybe some people who have helped incite it. And so that's interesting stuff. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the newest updates to the confirmation hearings of Neera Tanden. Neera Tanden, you know, our good friend Neera, who has always been so supportive towards progressives and the progressive movement, just not having a good time, though. She's not having a good time. In fact, it looks as though she's going to probably not be confirmed as the head of the Office of Management and Budget. So let me give you some details on what's going on here. So now this is the interesting after the heel turn by Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin actually did something useful for like the first time in his entire career, where he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna vote for Neera Tanden. Fascinating. And here we were like, Bernie Sanders, come on, Bernie, block Neera. Didn't even have to be Bernie Sanders. Here comes Joe Manchin with a chair. Oh, that's so strange. So strange how that happens. Oh man. Look, Joe Manchin's still a piece of shit, but he's a piece of shit that did something good. He got stuck to somebody's shoe, the right person's shoe this time. But there's more. It turns out that they're not the only ones. Yes. Or I'm sorry, Joe Manchin isn't the only one who is blocking Neera Tanden. You also now have two Republicans, which is not really surprising, but it's two the so-called centrist Republicans, and not the far-right crazies. Here you have Suzanne Collins and Mitt Romney that are like, oh, we will not support you to lead the Office of Management and Budget. Look, again, I kind of expected all the Republicans to be against Neera Tanden anyway. But like, it is interesting that they come out now after Joe Manchin and they're like, nope. So they basically blocked her. They've cock blocked her, and that's fantastic. I think it's great. I don't care who did it or why. Someone like Neera Tanden should not be in a position of power. And I know, cue sexism, and like, oh, I can't use sexist Bernie Bros, whatever. No, she has shown that she is not management material, from outing people that have been, that have accused others of sexual harassment inside of her organization, to like punching Faz Shakir, a former employee of the Center for American Progress. So she has not been good to employees. What makes you think that she should be able to run a government agency? What makes her uniquely qualified to be a member of the House? The manager of the Office of Management and Budget. No, I don't agree at all. No, she shouldn't be. And not just because of the toxic stuff that she's said, but also, again, her terrible management style or mismanagement style. And so, yeah, no. She's a career opportunist. We'll stab anyone in the back to move the ladder. Yeah, Danko, I feel like that's most of Washington, though. And I think that's more of like how you get power in Washington, how most people do, by stabbing each other in the back and climbing their way up the ladder that way on the corpses of their enemies. And so, yeah, that's kind of how that works there. There's an interesting note, too. Biden's not happy about this. Oh, he's so mad at Joe Manchin. It kind of shows you how invested Biden is in that, which is essentially a middle finger to the left. And let's be clear about that. That's exactly what it is. And maybe Joe knows it. Maybe Joe don't. Can you know everything that goes on in Washington, what everybody thinks? Not necessarily. But then again, I would say, at least from my perspective, that if Joe were to do any of the cursory sort of, research on how progressives feel about Neera Tanden, they would know. But then again, these are the people that also think that, no, you don't understand. We were reaching out to you by appointing Neera Tanden because she is so progressive. And so maybe they don't know anything about the left. They just know that they hate him, that they hate the left. So I don't know. All I know is that I don't care how it happened. I don't care why it happened. All I care is that Neera Tanden has been blocked so far, and that is, I think that's a win. That's a win for me. I'm sure Joe has forgotten more than he remembers. To be fair, you can also say that about me, because I have a terrible, especially terrible short-term memory. Thank you, Bob Dahoma. I'll go and read that later on. I do appreciate that. Yeah, that was on. By the way, Friday's show again. That was a lot of fun. I do appreciate Bosch for allowing me to basically platform me. That was super cool, and a really fun show. And I'm really glad you all enjoyed it. So I was going through and I was reading a lot of the comments, and very, very supportive. So thank you so much. All right. Anyway, let's dive in, and we're going to start out with Trump's taxes. Former President Donald Trump has lost another bid, this time over his taxes. So now, this is actually a decision from the Supreme Court, which is really interesting. So now the Supreme Court has decided to not rule in his favor and actually rule in the favor of Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance, who has been requesting about 8 records of Trump's tax returns. And so his records, 8 years of those records, will now be open to Cyrus Vance. So now this is important because New York prosecutors right now are looking into his finances. There are several different criminal probes, including tax fraud, possible racketeering charges as well, that involve about $26 million in write-offs. So this is one of the things, tax fraud, that came from fees he paid to consultants, which included about a $747,000 fee that the Times matched a payment disclosed by Trump's daughter, Ivanka. So she was getting paid by the organization. And then, since she's a member of the family, they also decided to write it off as a consulting fee. Very interesting, very, very shady. Now, Vance has also been investigating Trump because of the public reports of, quote, possibly extensive and protracted criminal conduct at the Trump Organization. Part of the probe also involves two payments to women, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. This was, again, before the 2016 election, so I think it was an attempt to pay them off. Hush money payments, essentially. So, yeah, there we go on that. Now, New York Attorney General Letitia James is also investigating Trump's finances, so she would love to get her hands on these tax records. So now, unfortunately, we're not going to get to look at them. That sucks. As part of the criminal investigation, the public will not be privy to the details unless, of course, they end up being reported by different news agencies. So we'll have to see. But overall, it's still a pretty big loss because he's tried so hard to, keep these from going public. All right. So hard. So now there's a couple of interesting theories as to why, I think. One of them is obviously the criminality, right? I actually don't think he cares too much about that because this guy's a career criminal. He's essentially a mob boss, which, again, interesting because one of the charges, there were possible charges would be racketeering, and money laundering as well. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he's done some sort of money laundering or been part of a money laundering scheme. And so we'll see. I mean, we'll see if that bears out, due to any reporting, if they actually start to bring him up on any of these charges. Right now, again, they're doing investigations, but this is a big hurdle that has just been cleared to open the way for these investigations. So now, again, the theories, right? Criminality. So now, there's no doubt in my mind, as I said before, on tax fraud. You think Donald Trump wouldn't do tax fraud? Of course he would. Yeah. No, like, you think he would just be like, oh no, I'm going to be an outstanding citizen and I'm going to pay my taxes and I'm not going to inflate or deflate my assets in order to fit the needs at hand. For example, deflate your assets when you need to pay taxes. Inflate your assets if you want to get loans. And of course, he's got lots and lots of loans. Over $1 billion of loans going to come true, or going to come due here real soon. And one of the loans is from, or I should say many of the loans came from Deutsche Bank, who had to hand over some of their records as well. So, yeah. Anyway, now here's the thing. I think he's going to get away with that. I really don't think that they're going to go after Donald Trump for not paying taxes or doing tax fraud. Why? Because do they ever go after rich people for doing tax fraud? Very rarely. All right. So any of these financial crimes, I really don't think anybody's going to care too much. Let's be honest about that. All right. I highly doubt, as I said, it's going to happen, despite the fact that Vance has enlisted former federal prosecutors. One of them is Mark Pomerantz, who's an expert on white-collar crime. So now, as the New York Times notes, he does have deep experience investigating and defending white-collar and organized crime cases. One of the investigations, as I said, involves racketeering. But as I said before, I don't have any confidence that these investigations are going to nail Trump personally and lead to anything like jail time or significant penalty, perhaps fines for the organization itself, but nothing for Donald Trump. So that brings me to the theory of why he's really been trying to hide these taxes. I think that Donald Trump's going broke. I don't think he's broke yet, but he's heading there. And I think he's going to end up getting, going bankrupt again in the near future. It's almost a guarantee, okay? He's got more debt than income from what I could see. And I think that he's embarrassed because he sold us on this lie of being a very successful billionaire. I'm a billionaire. I'm the best billionaire. I'm the greatest billionaire. I'm so very rich. I'm richer than you. I'm more elite. I'm more elite than the elites. I'm the elitist person that has ever been elite. And I don't know why the elites don't like me. because I'm very, very rich. No, he's not. He's not rich. He's got $1 billion debt coming due, as I mentioned before. Okay. His businesses have lost a ton of income because of coronavirus and the fallout, of course, from the Capitol riots, and now the legal defense costs, and now the toxicity of his brand, all that stuff. And I understand that they went after Al Capone for tax fraud. But again, Donald Trump is still a very wealthy and influential person. I am so jaded at this system right now because of how we treat rich people in this country, alleged rich people, or powerful people. And I just don't see. I'm gonna have to see it to believe it, y'all. I'm just gonna say that. All right, I'm just gonna say that. All right. So that said, there's a couple of interesting things here. One thing is that the Supreme Court sat on this for quite some time. Okay. Now, in fact, the last of the written briefs in this case was filed on October 19th. So that was before the election. They sat on this all the way through the election. And then after Trump's challenge, after he was defeated in November, and then they sat through that, and then waited for a month after Trump left office to then issue this order. Why the delay? I'm very curious about that, okay? And of course, they're not telling. They're the Supreme Court. Of course. Now, it is especially curious considering the fact that the legal issue before the justices has nothing to do with executive privilege whatsoever. It is super sketchy. And of course, a good reminder to all of us who actually believed in the Supreme Court. Remember, the Supreme Court has been taken over by ideologues, conservatives, okay, that are very pro-Trump. And so, for all intents and purposes, they've been taken over by the extreme right wing. And if you think that's bad, remember, the district courts, the local courts, have been filled with Trump appointees that Mitch McConnell had rushed through. And unfortunately, the Democrats have also rushed those people through or allowed them to get through without any sort of pushback. And now we're going to have to deal with a judiciary that is incredibly broken and incredibly right-wing. That's bad. That's, again, another reason why I don't feel confident that Trump will face any sort of criminal penalties. People around him probably will. Yes, that's what seems to happen. Everyone around Trump sinks, but he himself ends up usually fairly unscathed. And then so I'm just going by the history. I would be very, very, very surprised if Trump were to face any sort of real consequences for this. Okay. So I'm even skeptical, by the way, of the criminal probe that's going on in Georgia about the call with Brad Raffensperger, you know, where he's like, oh, there's so many, there's big, massive dumps.
Big, massive dumps.
Okay. And we need you to find 11,578 8 votes or 500, whatever, how many votes he needed to win the election that he was asking for. Go find me the votes. Find me the votes so that I can win. And it's the exact number that he needed to win, the exact number that he was behind. That's not a coincidence. But again, I don't think he's going to get in trouble for that because we don't hold people, especially former presidents, accountable. If we did, you don't think George W. Bush would have been brought up on war crimes for what they did in Iraq? Yeah, exactly. Dango Bango brings up a great point from the chat. It says, you don't mess with rich people's money. This is true. That is the one rule of the club, is that you don't mess with anybody that's in the club. If you mess with rich people's money, and that was Bernie Madoff's, that was his mistake. He made rich people lose money. Can't do that, because they will come after you. Otherwise, if you screw over poor people, they don't care because they do the same. And even if you violate so-called electoral norms, totally fine for them. Because once again, that doesn't really impact rich people all that much. So that's really it. All right. Those missing votes must be around there someplace. True. Must be. Must be. All right. Let's move on here. Let's go to the next story. Let's go to the My Pillow guy. It's my little lawsuit. I want to call it little, like My Little Pillow, but it's not. Ow. Trump's living off credit cards. Ah, I love it. All right. It's happening, folks. Dominion Voting Systems has finally acted on their threat to sue Mike Lindell, the CEO of MyPillow, and they're getting sued for about $1.3 billion. So this is great. They've been threatening Lindell and his company for quite some time, and they've decided, all right, that's it. We've had enough. We're going to sue your ass. Now, in its complaint, the company cites a number of statements made by Lindell, including in different media appearances. I've showed you video of that, where he's like, oh, no, you don't understand. The fraud. I got a movie out that shows all the fraud. And social media posts before he got banned off Twitter, and a movie, a literal 2-hour movie that claims to prove election fraud. I mean, look, you can't say he wasn't asking for it. He was absolutely asking for it. He made a movie and he's like, come at me, bro. Come at me. Now, the complaint alleges that Mr. Lindell had made false claims about the integrity of Dominion's voting machines, and that he knew that no credible evidence supported this his claims the company had stolen the election from Mr. Trump. So, now, I kind of disagree with this. Just a little bit. All right? So, that's what the suit says, that he knowingly did this. I'm not convinced that he knowingly said this, right? And I'll get to that later on. That's interesting, and you may disagree with me on that. Totally fine. So I'll go over it and I'll give you my perspective. All right. But first, let me just mention credible evidence. Credible. We know that MAGA doesn't believe in credible sources of information, nor do they believe in evidence. They cite random blogs and YouTube conspiracy theories, conspiracy videos. And by the way, I still think they use chain emails. I don't know if they do or not, but I know for a long time they definitely did. All right. So now, here's what they said, the complaint. He is well aware of the independent audits and paper ballot recounts conclusively disproving the big lie. But Lindell sells a lie to this day because the lie sells pillows. Look, okay, that's a really good statement. And there is truth to that. I always wonder, like, is there enough MAGA? Is he selling enough pillows to make up for losing $1.3 billion or possibly losing $1.3 billion? Again, yeah, sure, MAGA crowd will buy just about anything with Trump's face on it. But they'll buy Trump masks. They'll wear Trump masks. I'm pretty sure there are Trump, you know what? Let's just not go there, okay? I was just gonna say some Trump-themed adult toys that I'm sure someone will buy. That I'm sure somewhere are out there. Not going there though. We're not going there. But the point is, there's only so much of that people can buy. It just doesn't make any sense, right? But then again, what do you have a market outside of Donald Trump? I hear those pillows are terrible quality, right? So that maybe shilling for MAGA is all he's got. Now, the suit names the company, by the way, as well, as a defendant. So now what was the reaction from Lindell? Triple down. Or could we even call it a quadruple down? All I know is that he's like, no, this is great. Quote, in an interview Monday, Mr. Lindell said he was very, very happy to learn of the lawsuit. Very, very, very happy. I have all the evidence on them. Now this will get disclosed faster. All the machine fraud and an attack on our country. The machines, the machine. Yes, the ones that were supposedly programmed by the ghost of Hugo Chavez to rig the election in favor of in favor of Joe Biden against Donald Trump. Yes, that quote unquote machine fraud. Now, what's interesting about this is that what happened in 2016 then? So I mean, if the Democrats were the masters of voter fraud, then how come, and they had these machines, right? Because these machines were allegedly, created to help Hugo Chavez in his elections in the early 2000s. Well, then, I mean, what happened? Why the Democrats supposedly had these machines sitting around for all this time? For all this time, why not use them? I mean, 2016 would have been the perfect year to use them, right? Right? And if you had a machine, by the way, that made sure that you never, ever lost an election, why wouldn't you use them all the time? Why don't the Democrats have a majority in every single state? Or even nationally? Why are there Republicans that are in control of states, for example, like Texas? Or hell, why not take over Louisiana and Arkansas and Alabama? Why not do all of that? Why is the whole country not blue? Well, it's maybe because it's bullshit. I mean, and why, by the way, even reach out to Republicans like Democrats always do? Okay, reach out to Republican voters by trying to meet them at so-called on their terms, which, look, there's an interesting phenomenon about conservatives. It turns out they hate the same kind of corruption. They hate big corporations and all money in politics and all that stuff as much as we do. But you can't mention anything to do with any sort of leftist policies because they have been trained like a Pavlovian response, to hear that kind of stuff, any kind of rhetoric that even, is close to stuff that you hear Democrats say. And they're immediately tuned in like, oh, no, fair pay, Venezuela. Higher wages, Venezuela. Minimum wage, Venezuela. So it's just like that reaction, right? But if you can get outside of that and actually have a conversation with a lot of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but like I would say a good number of them about that kind of stuff. They're like, oh yeah, no, I agree with you. We should have healthcare. Everybody should have healthcare. Oh, well, wonderful, great. Some stuff like that. But anyway, why would you, though, have to reach out to Republicans like that in the way that Democrats do when you could just use your magic machines to steamroll Republicans every single election? It makes absolutely no sense. And there's a reason, of course, is because it's not true. It's just all fake conspiracy nonsense. Still, Dominion's lawsuit does accuse Mr. Lindell of repeatedly and falsely alleging that algorithms in Dominion's voting machines had stolen the votes from Mr. Trump. So what's their evidence, right? Algorithms. Break it down. Algorithms. Algorithms. Climate change. Democrats. Algorithms confirmed as deep state. That's as far as the thinking goes. Seriously. That's as far as it goes. All right. Now, there's more. It said he had undertaken a marketing campaign for the pillow company based on his support for Mr. Trump and his claims that the election had been stolen from him. Dominion says the allegations by Lindell have irreparably damaged its reputation, jeopardized its contracts with state and local governments, and prompted death threats and harassment against employees. The company says it supplies election equipment used by more than 40% of U.S. voters. And so, as a result, this case is pretty airtight for Dominion. Again, in fact, he's asking for it. It's like, yeah. No, I'm just going to keep saying these things. Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, again, they make election equipment with that cloud of election fraud, these lies being spewed out over that, unfortunately, a lot of Republicans actually believe that this had happened. Well, now, who's going to buy those systems? Who's going to buy it, right? Even with no evidence. as election officials had recounted and audited millions of paper ballots in multiple states, which all matched up to, by the way, the counts from the Dominion machines. And then you add in the threats, by the way. It's just not looking good for Lindell. It's just not. So now, again, getting back to why I kind of disagree with that complaint. I think Mike Lindell, to some extent, believes his own bullshit. He's gotten high off his own supply. And that's not me, of course, like making fun of him due to his drug past. That's just a funny coincidence there. But no, this is what happens with some of these people who are in the extreme right wing. They get high off their own supply. They believe in the bullshit that they spread. Okay. And for me, I don't know, maybe I'm too logical. I'm too logical of a person. I think about these things, right? I just don't think that somebody who faces $1 billion lawsuit, I don't think that they would do so if they didn't believe that they were right. If they didn't have some sort of conviction that, no, I really do have the truth. I have the truth. And I'll prove it. I made a movie. It's a 2-hour movie that really proves nothing, but nonetheless, it's a movie and everybody's going to agree with me. No. This could easily bankrupt him and his company. And I just don't see why he'd want to do that. Sure, the victimhood complex would be epic, but then he would also be poor. And so, I don't know. I just don't think he'd want to do that. If anything, he would try to take the Fox News Newsmax angle, right? And for a while, they were smart enough to stop pushing the Dominion nonsense, as the voter fraud nonsense, especially even after Fox News got sued by Smartmatic for $2.7 billion. But for the pillow guy, you can't shut him up. You could try to stuff a pillow in his mouth or, smother him. You can't smother the truth, according to him, right? And so you can't shut him up. And it's going to have disastrous results for him. In fact, Megan Meyer, attorney for Dominion, said Lindell has become one of the leading promoters of claims that Dominion rigged the election. Even as some of his allies have started to quiet down a bit, Mr. Lindell has doubled down and tripled down. Ms. Meyer told the Wall Street Journal last week. Dominion's complaints that the company has sent letters to Mr. Lindell in December and January, demanding retractions and detailing factual errors in his allegations. But again, that is not going to matter because he believes his bullshit. He just buys it, and that's it. He's buying it and he's selling it. And yeah, he's going to sell a couple of extra pillows, but that's not going to make up for the losses. So far, he's lost a number of retailers, all right, since he began promoting that election fraud claim. And that's not, I just don't think he's going to sell enough pillows and whatever else to make up for it. If it's purely a grift, I don't see the game. I just don't. Sell a few pillows and then you get destroyed in court. I mean, no, it doesn't seem like a solid business plan to me. There could be a third alternative to this, though. It might not be that he believes his bullshit or he's just a grifter. Maybe, and this might be the most plausible thing, maybe he's just really stupid. I don't know. Could be. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We got Texans versus electric bills. Fun times. Then we've got fake snow conspiracies. That's always fun. And then Capitol Police are in a little bit of trouble. So, fun stuff. Stay right here. Around the Nation. Be right back.
It's like a sharknado, except with poop.
Amazing.
Masturbate all day long.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. So, all right, let's dive in to some of the next stories here. So, sorry for the long-ass break, but let's do it. Had to get some stuff around. Following the Texas snowstorms that paralyzed the state and down their electrical system for days as gas lines froze, oil stopped, and even wind turbines froze over to all of that not being properly weatherized. Now, as a result of the state's nearly privatized and deregulated power industry, which puts profits and corner cutting over reliability and cost stability. So now there are reports of people, as a result, for this demand of power, getting massive energy bills. So now power supplier Griddy had told their 29,000 customers that they needed to stop using their services because they expected a price spike. And believe me, that price spike was ginormous. So now Texas resident Royce Pierce, for example, said that he owed about $7,000 for 2 days of electrical service. Jesus. A few days later, that bill grew to $10,434. Now, last year at the time, he paid about $330 per month. So now, going from $330 to $10,000 would make your head explode. Holy shit. So, obviously, people are blowing a fuse. In fact, here you had also Houston resident David Astreen, who had some rolling blackouts and then tried to manage his power usage. He works from home, taking care of a young child, ended up getting about a bill of $2,796.85. In all, the wholesale price of electricity, and those are just two examples, spiked more than 10,000%, leaving a lot of Texans with bills that range from 4 digits to one for more than $17,000. Holy shit. That's really, really, really bad. Now, mind you, this is for a couple of days of usage. And so the result, of course, is that it's even pissing off Republicans in the state of Texas. In fact, here's Representative or former Representative William Hurd. He's going to talk about the failures on Meet the Press.
100% this was preventable. This wasn't a problem with any individual fuel source. This was a problem of lack of leadership and lack of long-term planning. In 2011, there were hearings in the State House talking about ensuring that there was reliability. ERCOT and state leaders at the time said that the energy companies could self-regulate and make sure that happens. We can have cheap prices and reliable energy at the same time. And we always talk about this was a black swan event. This was an event that doesn't happen often. The only thing I've learned in my time in government and the CIA is that the only thing about black swans is black swans actually happen. Right. And we need to be prepared.
Confirmed CIA. But no, look, he's right. He points at, self-regulation. That was a big part of the problem, as well as Texas Republicans basically doing everything that they did to stay off the grid and avoid federal regulations, which include, of course, the weatherization of their power. And so, if there's something like this that happens, which it does once in a while, they're caught completely unprepared, and you have stuff like this happen. So it's weird. It's almost as if self-regulation never seems to work, because it usually ends up cutting corners for additional profit. And of course, look, you also had the situation where Texas's power grid is incredibly competitive. It's privatized. And so you have these companies that are like, how can we cut corners to still make a lot of profit and yet still, get these energy prices that are fairly low so we can get customers? I know, we'll just not weatherize our grid. and will not provide any services and will be, subject to giant price spikes during this entire thing. And that's exactly what happened. Sure, it's nice, during times of, good times and all that. But then when something happens, we see the result. So now, back in May, okay. So let me start this, right? In addition to the insane payments, right, you also have power companies that have tried to shut people down for non-payment of the bills that people have racked up. Back in May, for example, Texas regulators banned companies from shutting off utilities due to lack of payment during the coronavirus. And now, thankfully, it's probably going to happen again because here you have Texas Governor Greg Abbott saying that a moratorium on shutoffs is necessary while the state legislature deals with the bills that people can't afford to pay. So this is good. This is Texas. Texas Republicans saying, hey, let's actually, not make people pay these gigantic bills because it will destroy them. So let's do a moratorium. All right. And so there's that. All right. So now there's more here. Here's what he says. Texans who would suffer through days of freezing cold without power should not be subjected to skyrocketing due to a spike in the energy market. This is something that is being fast-tracked that legislatures are working on as we speak at the moment in time right now. So now Greg Abbott should get a lot of shit for blaming this on wind turbines, but not on this. I think he's actually doing the right thing. This is the correct course of action. Now, of course, it's also a reaction to people being incredibly pissed off. But at least it's the right thing to do. Yes, it's a little bit late, but at least he's actually doing the thing that he's supposed to do. Nobody should be shut off or have to pay these massive bills due to these gigantic price spikes. But the thing that's going to be missing, and I want to make sure that I don't miss it in this conversation, is that this could have been avoided had Greg Abbott and Republicans in the state of Texas actually done the stuff to prevent this in the first place by doing regulation. I know, the thing that they hate, the thing that they privatized their grid to avoid and separated it from the national grid. It turns out, hey, you actually need regulation. I know, it's weird. And a regulation to winterize, just in case something like this happens. Yes, of course, it's probably going to end up, having these companies eat higher prices or pass those prices off to the consumer. That sucks. But at the same time, they're there to prevent stuff like this from happening. So that's good. Okay. But I don't think Abbott is going to actually do the regulation to prevent something like this from happening again, and only is going to do the reaction to it. And so I don't see Republicans ultimately learning a lesson from this and actually doing any sort of fundamental change. But then again, maybe they will. Hopefully, we'll see. All right. I have a call that I need to take here. So I'm sorry, guys. This doesn't really happen very often, but I got to go and take this real quick. So I'll be back. And I know another quick break, and then we're going to talk about the newest conspiracy theory, or I should say an old conspiracy theory, come back. So we'll be back in a minute.
I have not loved this conversation. Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show. Sorry about that. We're back. Let's dive in. Now, the state of Texas is still dealing with the aftermath of a massive snowstorm. Now, power is being slowly restored to the millions who spent the last few days, even of the last week, exposed to the elements, to the extreme cold. Now, the failures of the Texas power grid to stand up to the snow and ice have been hailed as essentially an indictment of deregulation, as well as the massive electrical bills racked up by residents in the area, as well as a similar indictment of capitalism, right? This entire thing. But now, those indictments of both deregulation, capitalism, and, basically conservative ideology, and yes, the fact that they still don't have clean water, well, that's inconvenient to certain members of the hard right. And as such, they have brought back an old conspiracy. Fake snow. Now, let's be clear. Fake snow exists. There is such a thing as fake snow. I know. They use it in ski resorts. They sell it online. And so they do that to ensure that there is always fluffy, powdery snow when you want to go and ski. And there are other uses to it, of course. But that is not what they are talking about here. Now, the conspiracy theory basically says that the snow and ice that was that had happened as a result of the winter storm was just fake. It was actually faked. It was government snow. I know, right? Government snow. And it was just there to make Texas look bad. Oh, fun. Now, as The Independent reports, there are viral videos in social media sites, including TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook, that have all been claiming that the storm that hit Texas was nothing more than a hoax concocted by the federal government to undermine the state of Texas and its sovereignty. The evidence that they use: unmeltable snowballs. Take a look.
Our government and Bill Gates. Thank you, Bill Gates, for trying to trick us that this is real snow. You'll see it's not melting.
The hell?
And it's going to burn.
Hurry.
Snow don't burn. Snow melts. No water, no dripping, no nothing. If I put this in the microwave, it's going to start sparking because there's metal mixed in it. So you see that?
No way.
No melting.
It got harder. Try it again.
It's not melting.
That's not water.
It's just burning.
I'm sorry. It's not melting. Thanks, Bill Gates, for fake snow. And it's got metal in it, metal snow. Oh, dear God. So, look. All right. This, as I mentioned before, this conspiracy is not new. This has been around since about 2014. All right. There have been videos talking about this, like, oh, you can't burn the snow. You can't melt the snow. It's fake. It's snowspiracy. All right. So what's going on here, most likely, is that the reason that it's not melting, and this is go like to very, very super basic science, is that the snowball in contact with the lighter, it's just melting the snow so fast that it turns into water vapor. And that's why it's not dripping anywhere, right? So that's what happens. Oh, Jeff, snow doesn't burn. How do you explain the burn marks, libtard? Okay, but snow doesn't burn. That's true. So then where are the burn marks coming from? Well, it's not actually coming from the snow itself. It's actually coming from the lighter. So whatever source that you're using, and you can test this with different things, you've got either butane or lighter fluid or even a match, right? It turns out that when you light that's a chemical reaction, and that reaction emits soot, which then gets involved, covers the snow surface, and actually ends up creating a film that makes it look like it's burnt. That's what it is. It's very, very simple. All right. This is like 5th grade science, basically. You need a fuel source to light the lighter. That's chemicals. The chemicals get on the snow, and that's basically it. All right. You've got soot. I mean, if you try to burn anything with a lighter, that's what you're going to get on it. Basic science, folks. But like, these people, they're so conspiracy minded that they take obviously fake information and they go, oh, look, snowspiracy. No, when it turns out you're just dumber than a 5th grader. Seriously. And again, I love how they managed to throw Bill Gates in there just like randomly. Like Bill Gates is sitting around creating fake snow. And you know what Bill Gates is doing? For one, he's probably swimming in a gigantic pool of money, which again, if you're rich, why aren't you? Right? If you got billions of dollars, but is also probably trying to privatize education. So there are a couple of reasons that I don't like Bill Gates, and him supposedly creating fake snow is not one of them because it's not real. Okay. This is not an example of somebody creating fake snow or using weather machines to try to make Texas look bad. No, right now, the politicians in Texas are making themselves look bad because they're idiots and they failed their people. All right. What they did is they sold off their electric grid to private corporations. They deregulated them for profit. Those corporations then ended up cutting corners because they didn't have to follow these regulations. And so they did this in order to charge lower prices, and they didn't end up preparing for emergencies like these storms. And the thing about emergencies is you never know when they're gonna happen because it's an emergency. So maybe you should actually try to prepare for them. Weird thoughts. But then again, why do that when it's just easier to blame Bill Gates? Just saying. Fake floods lead to fake arcs. I think I'm missing this conversation. What's going on? All right, anyway. One more story for you. False flag, floods, raindrops, CGI. Great stuff. All right. So last week, there were some really important updates that were released when it comes to the investigation into the Capitol riots that happened on January 6th, or the Capitol insurrection. So now, one of the updates was the fact that the Capitol Police has been doing an investigation into its own members allowing these dangerous rioters into the Capitol without any sort of pushback. Now, as a result, 6 police officers have been suspended with pay, which is interesting, for their actions on January 6th, according to the department statement. An additional 29 officers remain under investigation as part of the department's ongoing probe of the day's events. Now, Capitol Police Acting Chief Yogananda Pittman said that any member whose behavior is not in keeping with the department's rules of conduct will face, quote, appropriate discipline. So now they were forced to do this, of course, after video that was live streamed. I've showed you that from some of the insurrectionists themselves, by the way, filming themselves do crime, showed police escorting them when they're inside the building, getting out of their way, opening up gates, things like that. And so all without any sort of resistance. Just go ahead and get in there. Yeah, just go ahead and get in there. Oh, all right. Yeah. Now, according to the police union, that's the USCP Labor Committee, the union that represents Capitol Police officers, at least 140 police officers sustained injuries as a result. Quote, I have officers who were not issued helmets prior to the attack who have sustained brain injuries. One officer has 2 cracked ribs and 2 smashed spinal discs. One officer is going to lose his eye, and another was stabbed with a metal fence stake. So there were a lot of injuries that happened as a result. So now, one officer, by the way, died, Brian Sicknick. 2 other officers died by suicide after this had happened. So now those 6 officers had just been suspended with pay Again, very interesting choice. I think it's actually because of that police union. Let's be honest. It's literally the only union in this country that has not, that has any sort of power, because Republicans won't defund it. Republicans won't touch it. Okay. And because it doesn't affect corporations. Let's be fair. That said, 35 police officers under investigation. And that's not all. You also have more. This next update is it involves members of the Oath Keepers, 6 of whom who are now facing federal charges. One of them, 52-year-old Kelly Meggs, the self-described leader of the Florida chapter of the Oath Keepers, and his wife Connie, joined 4 other alleged militia members to breach the Capitol. According to the indictment, the group ascended a flight of stairs outside the Capitol in military-style formation, then went on to breach the building. Federal prosecutors say Meggs parroted language from a tweet that Trump had put out weeks before the siege about it being super fun times to go and march down to the Capitol and, really show the politicians who's boss, right? Well, there you go. Another suspected Florida Oath Keeper, Graydon Young, allegedly arranged to get members of the group trained in both firearms and combat. According to the Anti-Defamation League, the Oath Keepers aim much of their propaganda at police and military, using conspiracy theories such as mass gun confiscation or rounding up Americans to put them in concentration camps, which, of course, again, this Oath Keepers are interesting. So they've been at several different BLM protests. They've been in different protests, anti-police protests, and yet they try to recruit police and ex-military to their ranks. They're pretty interesting in that respect, but they're also incredibly dangerous, as they are an anti-government militia group. And so that's really their aim, is to basically challenge police and the federal government and do damage to them. And so they also, by the way, came at Trump's behest. And so that's interesting that they were behind Donald Trump and yet went to the Capitol, the head of the government, which is president of the United States, but also is somehow against the government of the United States. Interesting. Very interesting. Now, there's one more here, and that's the FBI, and this had actually come out earlier today. The FBI and Justice Department are now looking into the role of Roger Stone and Alex Jones. What did they have to do with the incitement of the Capitol riots? That's what, of course, the FBI is looking into. Now, according to the Washington Post, investigators are looking at how their influence may have fueled the violence and whether that sway rises to criminal culpability and charges. Now, that, again, is very, very interesting here. The examination reveals, according to the Post, ongoing interest in individuals who never set foot in the Capitol, but may have played an outsized role in what happened by repeatedly pushing lies that may have helped incite violence. Video and other information suggests that in the days before the Capitol attack, Roger Stone himself was associated with men who stormed the building. That gave investigators a window to examine interactions and communications between Stone and the rioters, according to the New York Post. We are investigating potential ties between those physically involved in the attack on the Capitol and individuals who may have influenced them, such as Roger Stone, Alex Jones, and Stop the Steal organizer Ali Alexander, a U.S. official told the Washington Post. So that is interesting. Now, look, there's no doubt that the words from Roger Stone and Alex Jones were definitely inciting. Of course. I mean, you had them say, oh, go fight, be the real patriots and take your country back and all this stuff. All right. And so that said, do I think that they're going to go after Roger Stone? Well, maybe Roger Stone. Let's be fair, because they already went after him and he got pardoned by Trump. But Alex Jones has admitted that he's playing a character. Okay. He's played a character. He admitted that in court. Just like Tucker Carlson, by the way, plays a character, as he admitted in court cases that, no rational thinking person would ever take Tucker Carlson seriously. Same with Alex Jones, who admits, as I said, to playing a character. In fact, to kind of buttress that, Alex Jones was at the Capitol and he was marching, and he's like, let's not go into the Capitol. Let's not attack police, because that would feed into the global. That's what the globalists want you to do. My read of that is Alex Jones knows he's a fake, he's a fraud, and that at that moment, it got too real. And he's like, oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, no. Trump's over there. Trump's over there. Let's go listen to Trump speak. He was actually filmed at one point saying that. Like, get up, no, let's not do that. I'm just playing a character for money. That's all I'm doing. So I can sell my ridiculous, so I can enrage people and then, sell my ridiculous protein or whatever. What does he sell, like protein shakes or I don't think he does. But he sells like supplements. That's what it is. Yeah, dietary supplements and like prepper food. I mean, that's all he wants to do is just make a buck. And Alex Jones, again, he knows the rhetoric that gets people, fired up and willing to watch and to buy his products. It got too real for him. So, again, I don't think that anything's going to happen to at least Alex Jones. Roger Stone, well, that might be interesting. He was, of course, hanging out with the Oath Keepers on the day that they had decided to, storm the Capitol. So that is interesting. But what I do know, 100%, is that you've got a lot of people on the ground, the Oath Keepers, and the rioters. Certainly, they're getting in trouble. But the people who spread around the lies and incited people to violence, people like Trump and Jones, I don't think they're going to be touched at all. And you could be, free to disagree. And I would actually hope that you're right instead of myself. But I just feel like people in power, people with platforms, never really get to be punished. At least if they're on the right side. And I mean right-wing side, not the actual right side. You know what I'm saying? All right. That said, that's all I got today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Go check out the clips, of course. If you missed any part of the show today, go share the clips around. All that wonderful stuff. Thank you so much again. Any of the new viewers as well, hello. Thank you so much for joining and watching the stream. I do appreciate it. Give us a like as well. Let me check to see if there's anything on any donos on Twitch or YouTube. Doesn't look like it today. That's okay. I love you guys anyway. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all. And we will see you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See y'all later.
There's some whores in this house.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.